Hey everybody, and welcome to Survivor with Jay, Jack, and Colleen. My name is Jay.
My name is Colleen.
And I'm keeping those balls in place.
And welcome to the show.
That's a very apropos introduction for this episode, which
I think so.
Was a roller coaster of emotions, and let's just cut to the chase. It kind of sucked.
Yeah, it was interesting just to see kind of this trajectory for the season, and where Kelly's basically a rock star getting two idols, and generally has played a really good game. And I was like, oh man, she's going to win. To going home with two idols, and then Janet basically getting gaslighted, and
after they played her using the literally worst possible thing that they could do to play Kelly and Janet. I mean, not that Kelly, wasn't playing them first using it, but poor Janet, and then to vilify her. I have a lot of feels
I think that
emotions.
when people go home and I'm sure that they're watching it now. I would have to think Aaron would have to go, wow, I was a real dick.
Yeah, I actually told Aaron
it
to go F himself on Twitter.
It wasn't gameplay. It didn't, even if it was, let's say it was gameplay, did it need to be said?
Yeah.
No, I mean, it just, unfortunately, Janet did the right thing. And she, like most people, when they do the right thing, they get the bus backed over them.
Or you just
no good deed goes unpunished.
Well, yeah, and I think I don't. People that are faulting Survivor, the production, I do think they could have just probably edited all this out so we didn't have it. And I think this does show society, and I think when people through this whole Me Too movement, where people are like, well, how are people not believing them or whatever, and it's
right. Why don't you say something? We're in a period of time now where people are more sensitive to women's feelings. Yes, there was someone that was sensitive to a woman's feeling, and you know what happened to her? She got vilified for trying to protect those women.
And then they were with Dan, basically enabling the behavior and reinforcing.
They were reinforcing it.
They were consoling him.
They sat there around him in the middle of the night, soothing his freaking ego, when we have it on video. We have video evidence.
And they showed it throughout the episode. They kept showing it.
Well, it's not just the episode. They've been showing it since, I think, pretty much day one.
Since day one.
Because we've been talking about it for
since
at
the
least
beginning.
3 or 4 episodes. I mean, it seemed to come up a lot. And again, Kelly did confront him, and he was still touching her.
Yes.
So,
still.
Yes.
Again, in this world, don't touch somebody unless they tell you it's okay to be touched. I mean, I don't know why that's so difficult.
Right, and
because I personally, I've said this 1,000 times. I'm someone who doesn't like to be touched unless I want you to touch me. I mean, just plain and simple. I'm not a big hugger. I'll do it, but I'm not a big touchy feely guy. So I don't like it. So I understand when people, you don't do it. But that's
right.
just.
And luckily for you, you're a man. So people aren't going to go and test your boundaries and then blatantly not care about it when you say stop touching me.
It has happened, and I did have to threaten someone one time, and it was at work, and I was kind of like Janet. I was the one that was made to feel like the bad person.
Yes.
This was years ago because I threatened to beat the crap out of the person. But
yes, and now imagine a society, which I know I'm rhetorically asking this, where women are constantly put in that position all of the time and made to feel like the bad guy. If anybody out there was watching the first episode of the night and thinking, well, I mean, if 5 of them felt uncomfortable, why didn't they just... why didn't they say something? Because clearly they would have been backed up, or why didn't they band together? Because, as Jack just pointed out, you never know when, even in a Me Too world, you never know when you are going to be made the bad guy, when you are going to be vilified, when you are going to be slut-shamed, when you are going to be told that you're being hysterical, when you're going to be labeled as a troublemaker, when somebody's just going to tell you, oh, you know what? You might have felt like that, but he didn't really mean it. And as Jamal pointed out at the end, like, somebody's lived experience is somebody's lived experience. And maybe you don't have to judge somebody's lived experience. You can listen to them, and then you guys could come together and, I don't know, change, make a change. And it's just,
well, and unfortunately, you saw it tonight too, because people were more concerned about their game than doing the right thing. When it was clear that Janet believed, she was told this. She said, "Okay, I'm going to change I'm doing what's best for the tribe," which she said. And even some of the people that came up to complain, the women that came up and complained to her, totally backstabbed, totally threw her under the bus.
Yeah.
Shame on them. Shame on them.
In fact, I think it was Missy that said, well, it's a game. Or it might have been Elizabeth. I can't remember which one. But at some point, like I said, I've always said I'd go on Survivor. I'd do anything it'd take to win. I'd lie, steal, cheat, whatever. But at some point,
you wouldn't do that.
I wouldn't. I was like, okay, this guy, all right, I'm on board. Let's get him out. And then we'll replay. Then we'll play the game after that.
Right, and it's happened before, like with the whole Varner situation. Like, you know what, we're voting Varner out, and
right,
just go, and then we'll get back to the game. Right, somebody does something.
I mean, it just has to. It's just how, to me, it's a simple thing, but for some people it's not. And like I said,
she didn't want to get Dan out, but it was her moral obligation to protect these women that came to her and said, "Hey, you make us feel safe."
Yeah,
because she even said, she goes, "I have no problem with Dan. I get along with Dan. I like Dan."
But she said, "I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt if they feel this way," because she had the appropriate response, like another response that women get when they report sexual assault. Well, he's never made a comment like that to me, so clearly you must be exaggerating. That doesn't change the fact that a comment was made to somebody else, just because you were fortunate enough to not be assaulted in some way, or talked to inappropriately, depending on the situation, does not mean that it didn't happen to somebody else, right? So,
right,
and Janet had the right response, and Jamal and I really appreciate what Jamal had to say at the end of the night, listen, if somebody says that they're feeling uncomfortable, listen to them and believe them. And that's what Janet did. Janet said, "This has never happened to me, but if these 5 women are telling me that they've had this experience, then I believe them."
Yeah.
And even when she went to Elizabeth and Missy and said, "No, I'm going to confront them right now," and Dan said, "I don't think it's a good idea." But now he and Elizabeth even admitted she said it, but afterwards she goes, "Well, she made me say it."
Right.
I was like going, I go, why is it so important? I'd rather have Janet on my side as a gameplay. I'd rather have Janet on my side because she's showing that she's going to be loyal and she's going to do the right thing, opposed to Dan. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, and I think I wish Jeff at Tribal tonight would have said to the crew, is like, well, we film you guys for 24 hours a day, so how do you think people at home are going to perceive this? Because I feel like during the Tribal, Missy and Elizabeth were quiet, and I think
very quiet.
They have to know how this is going to look. But I mean, the fact that Janet even still got votes, to me, and the internet's rightfully so just saying cancel this season of Survivor after this episode, because
unfortunately it's been such a great season of Survivor, but
I know.
Today it was like, I don't care who wins.
Honestly, I love that the lesson from Rob and Sandra were too good to be true, because clearly the first 8 episodes of this season were too good to be true, because we had good characters, we had good strategy, we had wonderful socially aware discussions the past few weeks. And then, it ended up being too good to be true because, it turned into a giant apology for the Me Too movement.
In
the bad way.
Yeah, and the fact, too, that they had that scene where they said the producers talked to all the parties and then talked to Dan separately, and then have Dan sit there and kind of try and, feign being a wounded, whatever.
I can't believe
at the tribal.
anybody would say
he was
that.
trying to make
we're going to keep
himself
this going.
He
so
was trying to
kudos
make
to
himself
Jeff,
the victim.
Yeah, and kudos Jeff saying, no, I'm you really want to go here? And I wish maybe it would have been pushed a little bit more, though, from Jeff's side. And I read his interview on EW, which I think was just published now.
Okay, I have not read that
yet. And he's saying,
is it PR BS spin, or is
he's
it
trying to explain everybody's gameplay in that we're seeing Kelly's side of it and how it did really affect her, where Missy and Elizabeth maybe didn't, but still I don't think it forgives.
But if it doesn't affect
actions.
you, then just shut up and don't use it as
don't use it as gameplay.
Don't use it as gameplay, especially
right.
now.
And that's, like I said, it obviously affected Kelly because she did confront Dan.
Yeah.
I mean, when he's like, well, if it was Kelly, I'm sorry, but he, he kept saying no one said anything to him. Kelly told you. We saw it. I don't like you. I don't like you touching me, and he's still touching her. So he's a problem with Dan is he's in. I think Janet said, he's old school. I'm old, and I wouldn't do that. So I think that there comes a time where you have, like I said, when Jamal said, you need to shut up and just shut up and listen instead of trying to play. He handled it. Dan handled it poorly. Because he was trying to, but it's all, I'm being blamed. I mean this, I'm doing this. He was told to stop, even if it was only one person. Kelly told him to stop.
And the producers told him to stop.
And the producers told him to stop. And he's still trying to play, oh, poor me. And like I said, what Dan should have done, to be honest with you, is said, I'm going to take myself out of the game.
Right.
But, that obviously not going to happen. I hope Dan doesn't win.
Well, and again, and people are saying, if Janet wins regardless, and Jamal's president of Survivor. There's a lot of fun tweets around that, but it's in terms of who's left, Aaron D-bag.
My God,
and
Aaron.
what? Shut up! Who invited you to this conversation?
Yeah, F you in the face.
Well, again, like I said, why are you even saying, oh, she's just doing it for gameplay? What even
that's why women don't report.
Even if it's 100% fact, why say it? There's no you're not going home. Why say it?
And then the thing that I hate is as a man, just in hearing that phrase, it's just it's so just stop. I have daughters and I have a mom and I have a sister and I work
Matt
with
Damon,
women.
we get it.
And it's just that's not the point.
So you only started caring about how women feel once you had a wife and daughters. Cool story, bro. You didn't see them as human beings with valid points of views before that? Shut up, Aaron.
Anyway.
In the words of...
I train women, and I feel like going...
Well, I don't think any of those people you're training are going to want to work with you tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, he came off looking... He almost came off looking worse than Dan, to be honest with you.
In that tribal? Absolutely.
Because, again, he was just saying stuff that's going, oh my God, shut up. Shut up.
Yeah. Which just goes to show,
be Missy and Elizabeth. Just sit there and be quiet going, yeah, I feel bad for Janet. But I want to win $1 million.
You might think, and this is here's your overall lesson in society. Because we saw, unfortunately, we got a very harsh lesson tonight that I think is probably more reflective than people, like me that live on left Twitter or something see, is that we still have a world in which things like this happen, and it is very unfortunate that something like this, which was a legitimate issue, then became spun into gameplay versus just doing the right thing and voting the dude out, all because they felt threatened by the woman who, ironically, was the first person to raise the alarm on how she felt about this. And that is just what is just so devastating and heartbreaking and just overall frustrating about the entire episode is somebody says, well, I don't understand. We're in a society nowadays where people are generally more quote unquote woke and willing to listen to women's stories because, why wouldn't they just band together? And, the response, could be, well, you don't want to be labeled as a troublemaker and voted out. And look what happened. The woman that raised the alarm bells about this person got taken advantage of and then voted out. And yes, she was also trying to do her own play. I'm not going to whitewash the details here. She was also trying to make her own play, and she was very
She could have
smart
gotten
person.
Dan out in this by just playing the damn idol.
Right. Yeah. She could have played the idol.
She had too. I think she brought it out, but she still was, again, she was still kind of playing the game. She was playing the game, whereas Janet wasn't playing the game.
Yeah.
Clearly was not playing the game.
Exactly.
Jamal wanted Dan out for personal reasons because Dan wants him out. The only person that was doing it for the completely right reason was Janet, and she's on the bottom of the thing now because she decided to leave her security and go and put herself out in the forefront, and it cost her game. And
it was almost like when this person's running into battle and thinking everybody else is behind them, and then turns around and everybody left them to basically go be sacrificed. And that
happened to me once in a benches clearing brawl. It was me and three other guys, and we looked back, and some guy grabbed me and said, "You better look back where your team's at." And I go, "Oh, okay, I'll go back."
It's so sad and so frustrating.
Yeah, and I think there's human beings are I think we like to think we are advanced, and in a lot of ways we have. In a lot of ways we have evolved over the span of our existence, but there's a lot of things that show that when it comes down to it, sometimes that progress that we think is there, it kind of goes by the wayside when it comes
because it's always about the dollar signs. This is about winning $1 million, and I think that was more important to people than doing the right thing. Yeah, and it's what it always comes down to.
But honestly, shame on them.
I think you look at the Varner situation and other times where I think, or the I'm blanking on Russell Hance's nephew or whatever, where they kind of Brandon when he was just flipping out, and they just voted him out because he just needed to get out of the game.
And he did. I mean, that was definitely a situation.
But that to me, one is obviously more outlandish and in everybody's face. But is one worse than the other, where somebody is feeling, like their space and they're being touched in ways that they don't want to be touched? It's more subtle, but I don't think that makes it any less worse than why they voted out Russell Hance or why they voted out Jim Varner. So I think people
Brandon
have
Hance.
made. I'm sorry,
Brandon Hance.
Brandon you said Hance. Russell.
Sorry,
Russell they voted out because he's just a jerk.
Yeah. But so I think it has, but this is just an instance where their more maybe basal instincts took over, and I think this is Survivor is this social experiment, and this one kind of showed when the social experiment
and that's what makes it so sad and frustrating. Is the social experiment failed?
What it did is it. I don't think it failed necessarily. It just showed how human beings will act in certain situations, and this one showed how they'll fail, how humans will fail. I don't know if
you think it would have been different.
Failed.
I'm not criticizing Kelly here, but do you think it would have been different if she would have completely stopped playing the game and said, "Yeah, this is why I want to vote Dan out," and made Missy feel safer and maybe I don't know because it kept coming back because who was it that it was Elizabeth that came back and said no she wants to vote you out.
I think it
was Lauren that said that.
But I think
Lauren
Kelly,
came to Missy and
even
said
the
that.
whole time.
I'm sorry, with Lauren, yes.
Yeah.
I think Kelly was also worried or nervous about if she actually just out and out went after Dan and what would the impact to her game be from the very beginning. So I think she was, astutely, probably reading the correct vibes because of what happened to Janet. If she did just straight up come out and what would be the ramifications of that. And I think we were saying that from the beginning, how we were frustrated that, Kelly felt she was in a situation where she couldn't just out and out get Dan to stop because of fear what it would do to her game, and it's just really disheartening to see Kelly's fears play out for Janet, who did the right thing and basically have the rug pulled out from under her. And
you have Dan,
I think
who
Kelly
said
was right in how she approached it.
He has a large company and has lots of people working under him. The thing is, he's just gotten away with it. I mean, if you were seeing him do this, obviously when you got those cameras on, I think you forget the cameras are on you. I think that's who he is. He's a touchy guy.
Mm-hmm.
And when someone tells you, it might not bug someone, but when someone tells you, again, if it bugs them, you need to stop. And he didn't.
Yeah,
he clearly didn't, because we saw it tonight. And we know, like I said 100 times, we know Kelly told him, it bothers me. Don't touch me.
But then the thing that seems
if it doesn't bother Stephanie, then go ahead. Not go ahead, but it just, it's just either way. You shouldn't be touching anybody. But it's just like, clearly, I don't know what his excuse. He had no excuse.
Right, and you know what the thing is? So last week we talked about this, and I'm really sorry to be right that this is going to blow up in a weird way. But we talked about how they had that really random scene where he's trying to snuggle with Elizabeth, and they're making fun of it the next morning, and then that was it.
Yeah.
And that was clearly set up for this week. But Elizabeth said several times, well, it didn't bother me. It didn't bother me. Well, clearly you knew that it was freaking weird, and it wasn't something that you were all super okay with, because you went out of your way to make fun of it with the group. You knew that it wasn't behavior that is socially acceptable because you commented on it.
Yeah, I agree. They all joked about it.
But the most disappointing thing about the whole episode is that in the end, Dan gets off scot-free.
Yep, not a vote.
And everyone else... And everybody else changes their story to align with him, like they were with him the whole time. And the one person that stood up and did the right thing, the one woman that stood up and did the right thing, was the one that was made to be vilified. And
she almost quit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then they were like, oh, well, you shouldn't feel that way. And I'm like, you a-holes. You're the ones that made her feel that way. You're telling her now that what she knew to be true with her own senses was not real. You guys are terrible.
Well, and this was one of the first times, when she was sitting on that beach by herself and she was just over there and she just felt ostracized from the rest of the group. I felt I never want anyone to feel like they want to quit the game, but I was I would totally get it. Just screw this, I'm out.
Yeah.
I'm
You
done.
had Aaron and Missy walk right by her and go, whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
I would just be F this. This is not worth it.
Right.
This is not worth it at all.
Yeah, it does get to a point where it's yeah, because I'm the biggest critic of someone who quits, but I would have had no problem if she quit.
Yeah, because it's screw you all. I have no desire to play this game with you.
Wait till you watch wait till you watch this tape. Wait till you watch what was said. You're gonna feel like an idiot.
Not just any, just a horrible people. I'm getting teary-eyed right now just thinking about it. Just how she was sitting there by herself and feeling so alone when she put. From her perspective, put herself out there trying to protect those
she
other
did
women.
Put herself out there.
And
she,
that was the result of it. It's just awful.
Hero. She considered Dan a friend, but these women went up to her and said, this is how he makes us feel. And she didn't say, well, he's my friend. He's never done that to me. So clearly you guys are wrong. She actually said, I believe you. I listen to you. I believe you. And now I'm going to be with you to vote him out.
Yep.
Hero.
Yeah, and she goes to Elizabeth. And Elizabeth goes, I don't believe a word she's saying. It was really Elizabeth that was, stirring the pot. She's the one that pretty much turned everybody against Janet.
Yeah, well, and I think
it wasn't even against Janet.
Because Janet. I mean, Elizabeth did say to Janet, and Elizabeth confirmed it. Oh, I'm glad you're back.
Yeah,
I feel safer. From. And then she turns around and just completely sabotages her. I mean, I don't. It's it's human. It's what we do as humans.
Yeah, and I think. Well, I don't think all humans do it all the time. But I do think in groups or in certain situations, and I think we see it time and time again. We fall short of what we as what we consider ourselves to be intelligent beings to do. And yeah, Janet is a hero. I'm sad that she played the idol and it was basically for naught. It would have been cool if she played it for Jamal, but like really, the two best players in the game got voted out this episode. Jamal, I think just because he's had some really poignant moments in the show, just bringing up good conversation, and tackling hard subjects. Like, thank goodness he was there at that tribal, because I think it was going one way and he like turned it around.
Jamal,
Jamal, because like Aaron was going off and I think Jamal was like, whoa, like just basically pump brakes on that. Which then allowed kind of Jeff Probst to also come in to kind of like not let Dan get away with playing the victim.
Well, Dan kept saying, I guess we're just not going to let this go.
Yeah, I'm not going to let it go.
They kept saying that. Well, no, we're not going to let this go. I mean...
But that to me, like for the point for Dan, like, okay, he may be able to feign interest, but like that behavior at that tribal kind of shows like how ugly like people that, do these kinds of things can get when like pinned in a corner.
And he was definitely clawing and scratching and
but people that abuse their power and people that people that are in power maybe get put into a corner, they start to behave like that, and it's just
Well, they blame others, and then he gets the whole, well, if I did something again, anyway.
Right. But kudos to Jamal for speaking up, because once again, Jamal had that powerful message of believe, listen, and believe, because it's somebody's experience. So
let's vote him out.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. You lose, Jamal.
Yeah.
And you played your idol for Nora, and she voted for you.
Yeah. So. And then I think even for Kelly, like she played her idol for Dean. Like Dean wouldn't be in the game. But then, he voted for her the other time. So, again, I think I understand why you go for Kelly, because she was, I think, arguably probably the one playing the hardest. And
she was smart.
And she did get hurt. She did get hurt by Nora throwing her under the bus about it being Nora's idea. Yeah. I'm like, that's why you can't play with Nora.
That's why you can't play with the people that like the crazy people. Like you don't know.
You can't, because they don't have. She can't keep quiet.
Except maybe because Kelly did spend time with Rob and Sandra. Maybe Rob could have helped her work with Crazy the way he worked with the special agent.
Philip Shepard.
Yeah, Phil Shepard.
The specialist.
Specialist.
But but if you got two idols and you think there's a chance,
you have two.
Just play it. You have two.
Play one.
Imagine how different
this episode would have turned
out.
The
second episode would have turned out if Kelly had been there too, because Kelly would have stood up for her.
Yeah, Kelly would have been there, and Jen would be like, "What the f, guys?"
Yeah.
Yeah. You can see Kelly was just biting her tongue.
I honestly, I was kind of hoping, like Jeff, like, you know what, Kelly, do you want to say something and come into this? Because I feel like that was also really tough to see Kelly there not being able to like.
I mean, because the first time I think in the history of Survivor, I could be wrong, we actually heard the producers talking to a Survivor player.
Maybe like somebody
when he was. I don't think I've ever heard that before.
Yeah, like that extended.
And so I know that the jurors are not supposed to speak, but I think this was special circumstances.
Yeah. Right.
And I think they should have allowed her to say something instead of her sitting there almost ready to explode.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And so I
can't wait to hear her exit interview tomorrow.
Right? Oh my goodness. But I think I that's where I would probably put some more onus on Jeff here. Like, they knew everything that was there. They knew probably how this was going to play out. And I would have liked. I think Jeff did push a little bit, but I think he could have. I think there could have been a better handling of the situation. Because without Jamal,
I think once Jamal said what he said.
Yeah.
I really didn't think there was anything else that needed to be said, because what Jamal said was 100%.
Yeah.
No, that's true.
I don't know anything else that could have been said.
Yeah.
I mean, you're just going to have Dan going, "Oh, it's poor me. I apologize. I've never been accused of this before." You'd have the typical.
I find that to probably be not true.
Well, I think he's in a position of power, and people, again, you saw it tonight. People, no one wants to lose their job, so they probably don't say anything.
Yeah.
And
and even that was you saw it play out. Like Kelly was obviously significantly affected by his unwanted touches, or his unwanted touches. No, her
unwanted advances.
Yeah. Unwanted advances. Sorry, getting lost in the syntax. But anyway, But she didn't want to let it affect her game. I mean, you can just replace that with didn't want to lose her job. And if anything, I hope for the people that maybe did things that aren't looking good right now on this TV show. Hopefully this is a big wake-up call for them, and maybe even people at home watching, a wake-up call for all those people that say, well, why don't they speak out, or why don't they say something, or all this kind of thing. Like, this was like the most nail on the head case study of why this is such a complicated and has been for such a long time until this Me Too movement. And it's still complicated. It's still complicated. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, other things that were noteworthy to talk about this episode.
Was there anything?
There was a lot of things that did happen in this episode.
Well, I do want to be conscious of time. So let's kind of go through maybe some of the bigger things.
I'm going through my notes, and I'm honestly, I'm not even sure if there was anything else.
Well, can we talk about Jamal's the actual Island of the Idols in this one? Because I thought it was kind of effed up that they screwed him over here. Jack, I'm curious to hear your thoughts, because
you're just mad because Karishma didn't get it.
No,
he actually was a little bit like,
because I was like, oh, maybe if Karishma went, then the target would be on her back. But anyway, Jack, I'm curious to hear your thoughts, because I know you're very much against all of the immunity idols kind of just being slung around. But I thought maybe would you be a fan of this one?
This one seemed pretty crappy.
But I mean, I didn't know if maybe you would like this one in a sense, because
basically
you hurt him.
Again, your gameplay gets screwed because
of a random thing,
some random thing, and it's just like it. Again, I get it's not out of your control, but again, there's too many idols. I mean, they're throwing them around like, again, there's too many idols in the game, and this to me was the weakest of the going to see Rob and Sandra. I mean, and then he has to try and convince people that he got. And at this point, nobody believed it, because he had to write something on there, and then people, well, I can't even read this. So I think it was Dean that said that. So to me, it was one of the worst ones they've had, I thought. I was like Jamal, I go, oh, come on. You find something that's hanging around in a tree, and it turns out to be this.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it was kind of a bummer, the whole too good to be true lesson. And I wanted to be like, really? Is that the lesson that we want to go with this episode?
Yeah.
I feel like there's just other things.
I mean, I like Jamal as a player. I think he's a good, smart player. And to go out like that, kind of like, I don't know.
Yeah, but you know what? It was funny that, Dan, the dummy, was like, oh, it's very detailed, so it's got to be real. And somebody else was like, well, Detective Dean maybe was like, generally when somebody goes into too much detail, it means they're lying.
I thought it was Nora.
Was that Nora?
Nora, who's supposedly on Jamal's side.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think Nora knows where she is at any given time. Because, she got this great gift from Kelly and then immediately threw her under the bus the very first scene. So, but yeah, I would agree that we did not get I think we were robbed from Island of the Idols this episode.
Because the first time we didn't see it the first half of the show.
No.
I don't think
makes
anybody
sense.
went.
It was a merge.
The merge.
Yeah, but like I said, when I saw that, I go, and then Karishma's all upset. Well, I saw it first, and now she's probably going, sweet. I'm screwing Jay over by staying in the game.
I know, right? So part of that,
even though let's give Karishma some credit though. She's doing better in the challenges. She's not the first one out.
Yeah.
I mean, she has a win,
that's
but
where I want her to start winning now, because then she'll become a challenge to her, and then they'll vote her out.
Yeah, you're running out of time there, guy.
I know. But
I can't believe. I be honest with you, I don't know why they're voting for her.
The interview with Jeff Probst, he did talk about why they didn't let Kelly talk at the tribal. So he said, as for Kelly not having a voice while on the jury, we made the decision to hold true to the rule that jury members aren't allowed to comment or ask questions. Our intention was to maintain the integrity of the $1 million vote that the jury members make on day 39. So is that saying that
no, because anybody that goes to Ponderosa is going to know the true story.
Yeah.
So
it's going to be interesting.
It's not changing the vote at all. I know what he's trying to say. And I realize once you open up that can of worms that you did it for Kelly. But I think this was something that it needed to be said.
This is a different circumstance.
Just
to
point out, will they know the true story though? Because honestly, I think everybody out there has convinced themselves that whatever they believe now to justify their gameplay is what actually happened. I think everyone has talked themselves into a truth.
I think some people. I think
TV.
people like Elizabeth, Missy, they know the facts.
I think they don't. See, that's the thing. Is I think that they.
I think they're playing the game.
They're playing. I think they're playing moral gymnastics, and because I think that Missy was uncomfortable. I think Elizabeth was uncomfortable, and I think that
I agree. But
in their way to play the game, they are trying to convince themselves that
they're retconning it.
Yeah, they're retconning it exactly. Yeah. They weren't really that uncomfortable, but blah, blah, blah. So I don't even know.
But are they saying that because what we said earlier? They don't want to be Janet.
And that's really sad.
But they did it too.
I'm saying is that they will know the truth because I think if say Missy and Elizabeth get voted off and they start talking to Kelly and I think Jack's there right now and now Jamal, I think where they don't have to worry about winning the game, their guard will be down. They'll be, I did feel uncomfortable and I feel bad. I should have stuck up for Janet. That's what they'll say. That's what they'll come back and say.
Too little, too late.
It is too little, too late.
But
what I'm saying is the people on the jury. Say Dan's in the final three. The people on the jury will know the truth when it comes to votes. That's why it didn't matter if Kelly was allowed to speak or not. They're going to talk. They have nothing but time when they're sitting there on Ponderosa for 24 hours a day. Yeah. It's going to come out, and without the threat of being voted out or being put in the Janet position, I think that they'll level heads like, okay, I was just playing the game. I feel bad. The whole thing. They won't vote for Dan.
Yeah.
God, what if Dan gets to the final three or something? Ugh.
It'll be an ugly.
It'll be an ugly tribal.
Yeah, because then somebody gets awarded that much money for being creepy.
Yeah, true. Yeah,
creepy enough to take to the end.
Yeah. Ugh.
Yeah.
We just
if we think we're over if we're over the season with this episode, imagine him at final three. Oh my!
Can you imagine? I think Twitter might actually that would be the thing that would shut down. I don't know.
Well, hopefully he gets voted out soon, and we can get back to playing the game. I guess.
But that was our chance this week, and it just didn't happen.
No.
I'm trying to think of other things. That second challenge where they're hovering over the water. I would have been like Lauren. I think I would have been out real quick. The only thing is, I don't know how to dive or like gracefully fall into the water. So I think
belly flop.
Yeah, I don't know if I would have been more afraid of letting go or being that high up. It would have been really impossible.
Elena's Greg Louganis.
Oh.
No, she did a great. I mean, not the one where he hit himself.
Oh, okay, when he hit his head.
He's known as a great diver. So
yes,
from San Diego.
But anyway,
all right. Well, let's get to
feedback.
But wait, Kelly finds a second idol. At this point, we're thinking, okay, good, Kelly's safe.
Yeah, just play it. You
just
have to
play the idol, Kelly. And then when she looks at Lauren, am I good? And Lauren kind of, even I knew Lauren was lying.
Yeah.
And she goes, yeah, you're good. And I'm like, okay, you got two, play one.
What do you have to lose if you have two? You know, maybe she was thinking it would kind of blow up her spot, but unfortunately, Nora already blew up her spot.
Yeah, Nora threw it, so she had to stay in the game.
Yeah,
you have to stay in. That's the key. You have to stay. And like I said, Dan would have gone home, and we wouldn't have had to worry about this.
That flips the numbers. Yep.
But did you see Kelly's look when Nora walked by her? When Nora walked up to go vote?
No, I didn't.
If looks could kill.
Interesting.
It's like daggers.
Interesting.
But I did note when at the tribal, trust is important to Dan. That's what he said. Because it was odd because Jeff the first question was to Dan.
Right.
And he said
first
trust
question that we saw,
was important to him.
Yep. Yeah, there was a lot of talk about trust.
Yes.
Yeah, there was a lot of talk about trust, and that was the first tribal, though, right?
Yeah, that was first tribal, yeah.
And then the second tribal, there was clearly a lot of talk about perception and reality and believing women when they say that, Anyway, Yeah, let's hear what other people had to say.
All right.
Wait, do you think Janet was kind of given the idol?
No.
If she was or wasn't, I don't care. Like, girl deserved
No, I'm
it.
just saying. I just said. I wonder if they just kind of said, "It's over here."
Yeah. Maybe.
Anyway.
Maybe. All right. Well, let's take a commercial.
Give her
break.
another one.
Let's take a commercial break, and we'll come right back.
Listener feedback.
All right, it's listener feedback time. Time to hear what you all had to say about this episode. Colleen, take it away.
All right. So the first email is actually not related to this episode. This is from Lynette, a new emailer.
Oh, hey,
Lynette from
Lynette.
Phoenix. And she sent this in regards to last week's episode. Hello, guys. First and foremost, I just want to say that I totally love you guys. Second, I want to say that I agree with Jay and Jack that I believe Kelly's idol play with Dean was awesome. I think doing these...
We were wrong.
I know, man. We haven't even talked about this.
How
This
much a
totally
week
overshadowed
changes.
that.
Well, it's not our fault she didn't play the other idol.
I mean, the idol play with Dean was awesome, like upon
But Dean didn't vote
retrospect.
for her.
But it wasn't even, yeah, like it didn't win her over the loyalty that you would have expected that she should have gotten. Also, Nora, that was probably the one thing about the plan that was the flaw of the plan.
I know.
Don't tell Nora.
It was the biggest, and I think we said last week is why she was flipping is because look who in her alliance.
Yep.
Yeah.
Dean on the bottom, Nora who you can't trust. So
Yeah. Anyway, Lynette continues. I think doing these subtle play under the radar is smart. Then if she makes final 3 and pleads her case to the jury, she has a resume of strategic moves. I'm really liking Kelly and hope she makes it far. It's okay, Jay. It's okay. You got this. But that being said, lots of great players this season. I agree with Sandra that a woman will win this season. After this episode, I'm going to go on record to say I hope it's not Elizabeth. Finally, is it me or does Dan look like Harvey Weinstein? I know he's definitely creepy like him.
He actually does.
You all.
He does.
He does. It must be like that talent agent vibe.
Yeah. He does. I mean, yeah, spot on.
Yeah. Man, this email was sent 5 days ago, and it turned out to be very.
It's a very interesting time capsule after today's events. So thank you for sending that in.
Thanks, Lynette. Thank you.
As your first email, I think it actually is a really good email in retrospect. So thank you.
Yeah, email us again. The next email is from from Victoria.
Victoria.
So I'm gonna do. She says she's gonna do 2 emails, but I only see one, so just gonna throw that out there. So I'm gonna do 2 emails because I had a long day and I might not make it to add feedback by 10. So many impressions. As a rape survivor, I went through so many feelings during this episode, and they weren't positive at all. Being uncomfortable with someone touching is not a bleeping joke, strategy, or gameplay.
Mm-hmm.
In one hand, I totally feel what Kelly was saying about Dan touching her. It's inappropriate, and no one should have to endure that type of behavior. He should have been removed immediately, but of course Kelly is not going to risk the game that she cares because she cares so much. I was furious when she said she wouldn't vote Dan out. WTF. It bothers you to tears, but it doesn't matter because $1 million is on the line. This is why I see Kelly as a liar, because her passion, while definitely warranted, is only an issue when she's cornered. Her tears against Nora were a lie, but yet she still wants to play with her. I see right through her fakeness. I saw right through her fakeness last tribal, and I see it there. Her thinking makes no sense at all because absolutely no one was targeting her. In fact, they wanted to work with her. Ugh, and then the producers. I'm not sure why it took Kelly in tears for them to make a move. This pretty much almost made me turn the episode off, but at last, of course, I wanted to see how this would all pay off. Especially now, since Jamal was standing up against Dan. Talk about irony. I for one was happy that she went home, but mad because she played Janet because Janet is sincere and authentic. I appreciate Janet so much and would love to have her as a supervisor. Too bad I can't swim. I totally agree that she was played and it was dead wrong. As for Dan, why was he so surprised when the girls confronted him when the producers pulled him to the side? I was so confused with this whole episode. It just pissed me all the hell off. I do not plan on watching the second episode fully because this isn't Survivor for me. Should have been addressed before it was reached to this point, and I'm highly disappointed tonight. And she sent that episode at 9:24 p.m., so she must have stopped watching it after because she did not, I guess, this email is her thoughts up until there. We do not have one that finishes it out.
Do you think the producer should have just removed him from the game? I mean, I'd really like to know what was said when they had the group. I would have liked to have seen that.
I feel like he should have been pulled. Personally.
Honestly,
who was coming out against him? I mean, obviously nobody, because he didn't have any clue.
Yeah.
When they were talking to the group, nobody must have come forward because I'm just going by what was said what we saw, that he was. I didn't know that. I didn't know this. I didn't know that. So no one must have come forward to the producers, even though the producers know what's going on.
Well, okay. So
I mean, what's the difference between someone keep touching you, you don't want to be touched, and then you get thrown out right away if you punch somebody?
So
to me, there's not a difference.
I wonder, and I hate that I have to even bring this up, but for contractual reasons, because they didn't have I don't know, a smoking gun. I mean, they filmed them the whole time, but because they didn't have evidence of I don't even know. But I'm wondering if, for legal reasons, their legal department advised them, give him a warning first, and if it keeps up, then remove him from the game.
Warning should have been episode 1.
It should have been episode 1. Exactly, it should have been episode 1. But it got to this point, so I'm wondering if that is why. As disgusting as it is, but you can see in a corporate, it's CBS. I mean, hello, Matt Lauer. Was he CBS?
No, it's
Les
NBC.
Moonves?
He was NBC.
Whatever. Les Moonves is CBS, right? Yeah. So, I mean, it's not like there's not a history of these big networks trying to
I would say
sweep things under the rug.
I don't disagree with you.
Or covering their ass.
I don't disagree.
CYA.
That could be a thing. I will say though, if I'm looking at it from a risk perspective, to me, and maybe he could have really powerful lawyers, but I feel like they could fight off one of those suits, and I think Kelly would have a much more litigious backing for feeling like she was kept in an environment that shouldn't have been. She shouldn't have been kept in when the first thing was mentioned on the first episode. So I understand where maybe you just want to. You're letting the players play the game, but to Jack's point, if you're booted, if somebody
should have,
punched,
you said, I think you said it, Jay or Colleen, he should have been warned because she did come out and say right away, and there were other people complaining about it.
Yeah.
So, but Kelly's the one that confronted him.
Yeah.
That should have
been all on Kelly. It shouldn't have been.
No, the producer should have said, "Hey, look, dude, you need to keep your hands to yourself. One more time, we're going to remove you from the game."
Yeah, and just and this is where mental health is generally always takes a backseat to physical health. They jump in immediately if somebody gets hurt physically.
Yeah.
But they're not.
That's a great point, Jay.
They're not jumping in for obvious mental.
But even when I forgot to mention, even when Dan was trying to show different things, he grabbed Nora in a way that wasn't really I go, that's pretty close there, bud. I mean, again, I don't know.
Right,
even his defense when he was like, it's tight quarters. I said, well, I grab you and I say, excuse me. He didn't have to grab Nora to show it.
Right. We made through 39 other seasons in tight quarters without anybody.
Without this being an issue. I mean, you saw he was rubbing someone's I can't remember whose leg it was, but he was
rubbing somebody's leg. He was touching somebody in their hip. Like if anybody's coming up and touching their hip,
he was drunk too. Remember, he was drunk. He was touching her toes and Missy's toes, and I mean, that's not normal.
Yeah. Yes.
In a funny, joking way, no, that's not funny.
Right. Even a touchy-feely person, no.
No.
No. There's just no.
That's not funny.
Yeah, I don't see any situation where that's appropriate.
Again,
right.
if it's two people doing, if they're
If it's consensual, sure.
Consensual, sure.
But anything beyond like an actual romantic thing, like I feel like it's inappropriate.
Yeah, it's like touching my toes. I'm gonna knock you out.
It's one thing to like put your hand on somebody's shoulder or give a side hug or a hug, even a hug if you have that type of relationship.
Well, they went out of their way to point out, like, well, Tommy gives me a hug and I don't feel creeped out.
Yeah, but that's like, is that a hug or is he where he's coming in on the side like and holding like the midriff area?
Exactly. Like, and as Kelly pointed out, if you have to ask, is this okay? It's probably not okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So anyway.
All right.
Yeah. Anyway, so our next email, we have 2 from Mandy. And
Mandy!
She says, Mandy! Kelly should have played more like Jeremy and less like James. I'm really confused on how Missy is bothered in the first hour but not the second hour. I hate that now half the tribe is acting like no one was uncomfortable and let's brush it under the rug. Eric's tweets put it perfectly, so I'll read those in a second. This is Eric, ice cream scooper Eric Reichenbach.
Okay.
Jamal brings all the lessons. I'm so glad he was casted and wasn't stepping back when put in an awkward position. After Jamal's speech at Tribal, Maddie, that's her daughter, said, "Preach." Why I can't even. I don't know if there was a time I was this bothered by what happened on Survivor. And then she sent in a copy of Eric's tweets. The first one said, okay, so the breaking of the fourth wall earlier makes sense. This would be when the producer came out. Dan's existence in the game is clearly a conflict of interest. His actions have now impacted everyone else's gameplay and plans. In my opinion, for what it's worth, Dan should have been removed. The waters are too muddy.
Yeah, 100%.
I agree.
And then he says, this systemic problem that exists in the real world is reflected here. Jamal and Janet making a decision, in my opinion, producers should have made it for them, now is hurting their trust in the eyes of others. This is a strategic distraction. They're lying. It's really Missy, etc., etc. It's incredibly fascinating, but also infuriating. Last insight here, they need zero tolerance, like they had for physical violence. Brandon Hance, had he hit or harmed anyone during his Karamoa meltdown, he would have been gone as well. Hell, he was gone for walking up to that line. Mm-hmm. Very curious to know more about this at the season 29 finale.
Yeah. And
God, we're going to have to
39.
39 finale, sorry. It's going to be insufferable listening to Jeff try to put everybody on the couch. Ugh.
I think they'll have like a 10-minute like they had last time. I think that the long things are done.
I'm
but
glad.
like I said, you get sent home or you punch somebody.
Yeah.
But like I think Jay was saying, I don't think it's in probably the contract.
No,
they probably haven't got that far ahead where it's like, okay.
But I say, damn the contract. Like they have enough money to get through look at what John Oliver did to
not John Oliver
to that Cole CEO. But
well,
they have the wherewithal to defend themselves legally in a situation. I think no judge would.
Right, and this guy
and CBS should be doing this. And like I said, we shouldn't have to. I mean, we're spending the whole podcast, telling CBS what they should be doing.
Yeah.
Everyone on Twitter is telling CBS what they should be doing.
And I get Jeff's, it's his show, and his in that interview seemed very much to try and explain why everything kind of played out the way it did. But I'm sorry, I think Dan should have been pulled from the game a lot sooner, and especially how this all blew up.
Or you should have been giving a warning after the first episode, like, "Hey, dude, she's uncomfortable with you massaging her like that. How about you, calm that down?"
And I bet you they left it alone because they want the drama and they want something to blow up. But I think this blowback and everything that's happened.
This was a mistake. It's like Brandon Hance, bringing him back when you knew he was a loose cannon. Yep. The guy that quit twice. Cole.
Cole.
Instead of bringing people in, they think is good TV. I never thought Brandon Hance was good TV.
Well, and that
Russell Hance was good TV. Brandon Hance was not fun to watch.
Well, and that's where I think this episode is case in point why you pull a player like Dan from the game immediately, because this backfired big time.
It did. Because I just scanned Twitter because there was so many commercials that I was like, wow, they are not happy on Twitter.
I don't think
rightfully so. I mean, it just. I want to talk about the game. I shouldn't have to be talking about a dirtbag like Dan.
Right, and like, what are we going to talk about with the game this episode? Like,
what we're going to talk about for the following weeks is just going to be really hard. It's going to be really hard to not have this be a stain. I mean, it already is, but to have it not somehow negatively impact the whole rest of the season.
And just to reiterate here, the stain is not just Dan's alleged behavior.
Yeah.
The stain is that a group of people then walked it back and said, "Just kidding," and left a woman out
Dan,
to
you're
dry.
okay. And then the person that did the right thing.
Yeah.
And that is the point. That is the thing that is so frustrating to remember is somebody did the right thing and that person essentially got punished for it, and that's not cool.
Yep.
No, it's that's I think that's what made it this whole situation worse. Was that someone did, because I think I said a couple weeks, I don't know if I said on this or the other thing I do on Crazy Hank, I said, why didn't everyone get together and confront him together? But here's someone who did stand up and say, okay, I'm going to do the right thing, and they got trashed for it.
Yeah.
So now it's just, I don't know.
Yeah. I will have everyone know that, because I just got a message, I did send Shandy, my co-host on the broadcast, a message about this episode, and I said, hey, just to warn you, it's like a 2-drink minimum episode, so just make sure you're prepared, because it's not great. And she was like, I'm really nervous now, and I was like, don't worry, and then the message I just got was, holy S, a viewer warning at the beginning of the episode, and then it was like the big-eyed emoji, and I was like, okay, I'll talk to you in 2 hours after I'm asleep. But anyway, Mandy's email, the second email finishes very
Mandy!
Because I know this isn't the ABC or even D's stories from this episode is still interesting. Last week, Kelly saves Dean by giving him an idol. Jamal saves Nora by playing his idol for her. Tonight, Dean votes out Kelly and Nora votes out Jamal. All the more reason to keep the idol for yourself.
Exactly. You can't buy. It's like when people say, "I'm going to bring this person with me to the rewards, like garner favor." No.
Yeah.
In the end, and this, like I said, we've said 100 times. This episode proved that it comes down to the most important thing here is winning the $1 million.
Right. It's not. Was it San Juan del Sur where they pretty much gave away all of their rewards to like each other, and it
and it
still
didn't
results.
pay. I mean,
right?
Because in the end, people again, like we said 100 times, this episode was all about people just saving their own butts.
Yeah,
so.
And isn't it really sad that in real life, we'll end on, I guess I'll say this and then stop. In real life, a lot of the things that happened that brought about the Me Too movement, as we can read about in Ronan Farrow's Catch and Kill, and just anecdotes from the last few years, money took precedence, and that's why a lot of these people got away with, men got away with what they were doing.
Money talks.
Here we are in the great social experiment, and
you even had the reporter from ABC that was on a hot mic, and basically she said she had the story, and ABC said no.
And here we are in the game, and it's $1 million on the line, or as Jeff Kent would have said, $600,000 after the government takes it.
Still, I'd take it.
But yes, still, even then. That's what kind of took precedence at the end of the day, and it's just it's just, if this is a great social experiment, then I feel like society didn't do great tonight. But I'm also encouraged by the reactions of the fandom, which clearly were outraged.
I don't see. I haven't been on Twitter all night, but I haven't seen one positive. Not one positive moment about That's why, people like Dan, you got to be careful when you go on these shows because, you're able to get away with it, because you're not having cameras following you 24/7. But now, go on a reality show and you're now mud.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anyway, guys, thank you so much for listening.
Yes.
Next week, we hope to be more positive.
I think we needed to talk this one out, though.
Yeah.
Because it was
it had to be talked out because that was unfortunately, that's the whole episode. I mean, it was that final tribal was, and what happened to, if
Janet, you're the hero.
What happened to Janet was just unacceptable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Kelly too, but what Jan, like I said, it was completely unacceptable what happened to her. And like I said, Aaron, that guy, I just wanted to punch him in the face because he's like, shut up.
Yeah. Can I say I'm real glad that we're not going to have Johnny Fairplay on anytime soon?
Yeah, I can imagine what Johnny Fairplay would say.
Yeah, I think
I don't want to.
I got
think his
t-shirts
coverage
out.
of
Hey,
this.
the heck with Janet.
Yeah, I think.
He would have been like, "Oh, I would have made up a sexual assault, weeks ago.
Oh.
It's this year's dead grandma."
Oh boy!
Yeah.
All right. On that note, let's close
that's
it
pretty
out.
much spot on, though. I mean, it's. I'm laughing out of
because it's true.
It's spot on.
All right. I want to thank people that make the show possible, our patrons, especially Tack from Tokyo, Eckhart Ricker, Maggie the Magnificent, Joanne with the Plan, Drake the Destroyer, and Ed the Creepy Letty. Letty?
What do you say?
Letty. Oh, God. Let's close this one out. We'll see you all next week. Hasta luego and goodbye.
Hey, patrons. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, patrons.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.